Yes, good. Once again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You see, yesterday at the filling station near by my office in Lekki, an average age man brought out a lighter with the promise and intention to burn down the filling station. The reason is very simple. He was frustrated at the injustice of rightfully queuing up at the filling station, waiting his turn, while a lot of other car owners, some of who are elites and professionals, actually bribe their way to jump through the queue to get fuel. This morning, and as I speak, the filling station is manned by a group of armed forces personnel paid to maintain law and order, especially with queue management. But guess what? My colleague just got in from the filling station, and when I asked how he went, his answer was simple. I had to use my connection to bribe the Mopo guys with 1K and the attendant another 1K to be able to get full, specifically, especially in the jerry can. And again, this takes me to a while back where my friend's son actually mentioned that the driver had said to them that he can actually jump the red light, they can jump the red light as long as the road is free. And these are the stories of every day in Nigeria. Decadence at every level of our being, and it's very scary that we're losing our values at the speed of light. And it is more alarming that the upcoming generation may never experience what a sane society that thrives on law and order looks like. This broad line between good and bad is becoming blurry and almost getting to the face of extinction by the day. And that is why we need to stand up as a people to salvage the soul of our nation, beginning with a personal decision and commitment to always do right, to always do the right thing regardless of the circumstance. And of course, today's session is one of the ways we are deploying to create the required awareness for us to be able to always do the right thing as we build a new Nigeria. I warmly welcome you to this edition of Doing the Right Thing at the Workplace. This session is organized by Doing the Right Thing Awareness Initiative. We are a non-partisan and non-religious national movement, mobilizing like-minded Nigerians who understand the actual damage that lawlessness and moral decadence have done to our nation. This initiative was established sometimes last year, and in this period, we have organized a few sensitization initiatives across our platforms and at some critical foundational places like the schools. And as we go on in this session today, you get to learn more about us. But I'm so excited to be your anchor and moderator for tonight. And we have two guest speakers with us tonight that will be discussing with us on doing right at the workplace. It's a practical discussion tonight, and we intend to learn a lot and create the required awareness. Please welcome with me our guest for tonight, Mr. Dapo Olasokwe and Mr. Kayinde Oyewiri. Mr. Dapo Olasokwe and Mr. Kayinde Oyewiri, please welcome. Without further ado, please may I have Mr. Dapo and Mr. Kayinde introduce themselves in 1 minute each. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. My name is Dapo Olasokwe. My background is accounting. I'm an accountant, chartered accountant, started from Coopers and Lybrand, now PwC, and I've worked in banking, I've worked in telecoms, and currently working in sports betting. I'm the CFO of BetKing Nigeria. And so that's a very short introduction of myself. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Dapo. Please, do we have Mr. Kayinde on the platform yet?
Yes, we do. Please confirm you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. So my name is Kayinde Oyewiri. I'm an engineer. I've worked in the gas industry for the past 23 years now. I have worked in asset management. I've done some work in procurement, and I'm now leading their project division. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much. All right, so I'll be asking our guest speakers a few questions, and then I'm hoping that we can also contribute at some point. If you want to contribute at any point, please signify, and then our host will be ready to mute you and allow you speak. All right, so first question to our guest, Mr. Dapo first. Why do you think that this initiative, doing right, is so important to Nigerians and for Nigerians, especially at a time like this?
Thank you. Just to go by what you have said in your introduction, it goes right from the basic things, in Nigeria, queuing up, not jumping the queue, jumping, the traffic light, not shunting whenever you are even on the queue. You are queuing up in your car, and you see, the shoulder on your right hand side, and you think you need to go on that, to shunt in front. So also we are going into elections. We know what has been said about, the candidates, about parties and things like that. It goes down to, the basic moral fabric of our existence and of our society. So it's very, very important. And I'm very excited that this kind of movement is there. And every little thing we do actually will go towards making us do things right as individuals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. That was out. Especially going into elections. Mr. Kayinde, please, do you want to contribute to that? Thank you.
So I think for me, it's the conventional wisdom now in the nation is that doing the right thing is actually the wrong thing. That if you do the right thing, you get less, or you get left behind, or you miss out, or you're late, or you don't get enough. It's always the feeling that the sharp guy is really the sharp guy. And I think one of the sad things is that people who are supposed to be educated don't actually understand that doing the right thing is not just better for everyone, it's better for them. So the person who follows or who blocks the oncoming lane of traffic, thinking that, oh, I've passed 10 cars, is creating society where people find that kind of behavior permissible, and he might be the first person at the front of the line one day, but the next day he's at the back. And why? Because he's created a society that people find that behavior acceptable, or think they can do that and get away with it. So queuing, taking your turn, doing things in an orderly manner generally works out better even for you. We pay a lot of additional tax, we have a lot of stress in our lives because we don't do the right things or try to solve the issues that cause frustration. So you go to the passport office, or you go to the driver's license office, and someone now comes to you and says, okay, for a little bit extra, we'll get your passport out. And a lot of us do it, and the truth of the matter is that we are now helping to create the system that doesn't work for anybody but the few people who profit. So doing right is actually, in a perverse way, it's actually your own enlightened self-interest. It helps you have better outcomes, and also helps you live in a better society. I think the more we can spread that message and let people really understand that you're not a fool by doing the right thing, I think we'll all have a better society. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Can you hear me? Thank you so much, Mr. Oyewiri. Can you hear me now?
Thank you. Yes, I can.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for that input. So let's start to drill down to our topic for the day. That is doing right in the workplace. And I would actually like to feed off where you stopped, Mr. Oyewiri. That is doing right at the workplace, just taking off from where you started from. Doing right most times, especially with the level of decadence in our nation, at times means standing alone. And thankfully, one of our values in Doing Right Awareness Initiative is courage. Please, can you share with us a personal experience or an instance where you have had to choose doing right against popular opinion, or where you have been scorned for doing right at the workplace? I mean, how did you handle the situation, and what lessons learned can you share with us? Do you understand the question, sir?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Who do you want to go? Who do you want to go first?
Mr. Oyewiri first, please.
Okay. So it starts pretty early. I think you start to get those tests early in your career. I mean, maybe after a few years to job, you're given a level of responsibility, and what you find that sometimes people, either your peers or people senior to you, come and ask you to do favors for them that are outside the procedure. So I recall working as an engineer, being in a position that in theory could influence um, recruitment of people by a subcontractor. So everyone comes to you and says, look, if you just send the contractor a note or a letter or this or that. And sometimes very senior managers will come to you with those kind of requests. So I think very early on, we need to make a choice and just really just decide what's important to us, what kind of life do we want to live. And I like Stephen Covey's idea of living your life backwards, to say, at the end of the day, when you look back, what experience would you have liked to have had or leave behind? So if you're someone who claims that you want to live a life of integrity, then you have to understand that in a society like ours, there's some persecution and blows that come with that. The first thing you need is wisdom. I remember having to talk to some very senior managers and asking, just praying for wisdom of how do you tell them no? Because I decided that it was not something I was going to do. So I said to them, look, you've given me this job and you've asked me to deliver, safely and to high quality. But yet you're now trying to get me to force the contractor to take people that, are not necessarily qualified to do the job. So I said, sir, tomorrow when something happens, what's going to happen when you look at me and you tell me I've done a bad job? When you put me in this situation, that's my job to hold that person accountable for having the right procurement practices and recruitment practices. So I can't do this. And they'll always counter with, yeah, but the contractor is doing it himself. He's bringing his brothers, he's bringing his cousins. And my response was that, well, he can do it, but I can't. Because if he does it, then I can hold him accountable for his poor performance. But if I do it, then I've lost the moral ground to do so. So there's wisdom when you seek for it. And I can't remember, I'm sure maybe somebody coached me on that, but I remember that I found a way to be able to now explain to people why it was difficult for me to do it. Because people don't care about your reputation. They don't care if you get caught, if you lose your job. All they care about is getting their own way and seeing if they can induce you to give them a favor and maybe pay back one day. So that's when it starts, and it's not comfortable. But one of the things I found quite quickly was that you start to get a reputation, one way or the other.
0.16 kilometer.
Please go ahead, please. Can we hear you? We can't hear you.
Activity pause.
Sorry, can we all hear you? So if you can hear Mr. Oyewiri, please, can you say yes? Can you type yes?
Okay, sorry, I was muted somehow. I'm not sure why. I'm unmuted now. I hope you can hear me again.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah, so I said, so it starts quite early, and when you start getting a reputation for saying no, then in a perverse way, it's actually becomes a bit easier, especially if you actually don't do what it is that you're refusing to do for others. That always helps. So I'd always say, if you've ever heard, it's funny when I hear some candidates today and I think back, I always tell them, if you ever heard that I did this thing that you're asking me to do, come back and meet me and I'll do it for you. that I've never done it and I want to do it. And these are my reasons why. It never stops. I guess what I've learned over the time with coaching and experience is how to be a bit more diplomatic and how to say no in a way that is less offensive. But I think also the reputation that you get as a young person, if you're consistent and you guard it, is also a bit of a shield, because people then say, "Oh, don't worry about this one. He's not going to do it. So just don't bother even talking to him." So it's not easy. It doesn't make you very popular. You don't get invited to all the parties, or you're not in all the inner caucuses. But it all depends on what you want to see in your mind when you fall asleep at night. And I think I'm quite happy with the path I've taken. Okay, you're muted. Sorry, I can't hear you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Oyewiri. So living your life backwards, developing the wisdom to say no, standing up for what you believe in, starting early by building reputation of saying no, and then developing the diplomatic aptitude to be able to say no in a nice way, for lack of a better word. I don't know about the last one, but I don't know about saying no in a nice way, but I mean, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the wisdom.
It helps. They say don't say no to your boss.
Okay. So again, I think it boils down to wisdom. Thank you so much. Mr. Dapo, do you want to weigh in on that, please? Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Early in life, I was trained to be to do things right, and I would say thanks to Coopers and Lybrand for that. As an accountant, as a young accountant, we were told, you needed to do things the right way. You needed to do things when you go to a client's office. You need to comport yourself. You need to make sure that, you don't do things, you don't compromise yourself. And even as a young accountant, we saw a lot of, CFOs at that time trying to compromise you when you see things happening, and they tell you, or they tell you in a nice way not to put those things down, in your working paper. But that's where it starts. If you take that decision not to put those things down on your working paper, then you have compromised yourself, and you're not going to do things the right way. So very early, in life, I was taught to do those things. Later in life, of course, when I left Coopers and Lybrand and I joined banking, I saw a lot of things. And honestly, there was a bank I won't mention that I worked. I had to resign from that bank because I could not do the things the CEO was asking me to do. I was a financial controller, and cooking books, doing things like that. So I wasn't surprised when that bank went down, and I left the employment, and the guy could not really understand why I resigned. So you have to, just like Mr. Oyewiri said, you have to do the right thing, make sure you are known for something, you understand? And you have to take a decision. It's either you want to stay in that rut or you want to leave. So I left, Later in life also, I've dealt with a lot of people from tax offices, and all that. I worked in another bank that they were doing things the right way. And honestly, I thank God for that bank. The chairman of that bank at that time would say, look, guys, even if you give me profit of, 10%, 15%, or even 8%, be over and above what we made the previous year, we're okay with that. And as a result of that, we had that ethos. We were not paying brokerages. We were not doing all the other things banks were doing, and the bank survived. At the end of the day, we may not have made bumper profits and things like that, but we made steady profits, and we knew that our profits would not be compromised in any way. Nobody would come back years later to say, oh, there was something we did wrong and we needed to something extra. Even up to where I'm working currently, it's a big struggle, but we distinguished ourselves and said we have to do the right thing. And people see you and say, oh, is it your money? And it's like, no, it's not my money, but I have a fiduciary duty to some people. So at the end of the day, I stick to what I need to do. And if it can be done, and then one thing very, very important is get your documentation very right. If your documentation is right and you are on the right path, even if you've done something, or even if you fail to say, you miscalculate something and it results in X amount that you need to pay, we just pay it because we made a mistake. Yes, we will pay it, but we will not pay anything under the table. Very, very important. Thank you. You are muted.
Thank you so very much, sir, Mr. Dapo. You have touched a lot on stand up for something, and I remember that someone once said that if you do not stand up for something, you will fall for anything. I'm going to give a member of the audience 1 minute. Anybody that wants to share a personal experience on when they have had to stand alone or be scorned for being against the public opinion and what lessons they learned. If there's anybody that wants to share, please kindly signify by raise of hand. And then if you're joining us for the first, if you're just joining us, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. This session has been put together by the DoRight Awareness Initiative, which is a national movement for mobilizing like-minded Nigerians who understand the actual damage that lawlessness and moral decadence have done to our nation. Our vision is actually to reawaken and entrench uprightness in Nigeria. And we do that by enlightenment campaign, advocacy and mass mobilization, recognition and role modeling, and our values, our integrity, diligence, respect, compassion, courage, and meritocracy. Please, you can do well in following us on all our social media platforms, Instagram and Twitter at DoRight, always doing right NG, always doing right NG. And our website is www.dorightng.ng. Yes, thank you. All right, I think I have a reason.
Okay.
Pausa.
Good evening. Yep. Yes, please.
Pausa, please. 1 minute.
I have
1 minute.
Good evening. Okay. Okay, can I go ahead?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Sometimes this year, specifically in June, I was supposed to renew my driver's license, and I did make the payment online, and I was supposed to collect my driver's license at the office at Anthony. Now, upon the driver's license being ready, I got there, and the lady that attended to me says that I have to pay. And I said, pay for what? And she said, that's how it's supposed to be, that all of us, we just went and ran online to go and do the payment, and that when we were not doing it online, that the monies that they were making now, that they've technically debarred them from making that money. And I was taken aback, as in for her to actually voice it out and say it, and she was very open about it. Her other colleagues heard her, and I just absolutely refused to collect the driver's license. I thought I didn't even have money. I didn't even go with my wallet because I was parked on the other side of the road. So I just hopped down and crossed to just collect it and then get back. And she now starts with this. So I left. I thought I didn't have any money. Even if I had money, I was already upset that why should they want to obtain me like this? I've not done anything other than do what the government has said we should do. And if there was any payment, I think the government would have factored that in, just for me to be able to collect it and walk away, sign their paper for collection, and I left. And since then, I've not been able to collect it. I've refused to collect it, and it has not helped me because I only drive around my neighborhood. I don't go out far because I don't want anybody stopping me for my driver's license. So in this case now, what do I do? Because I've not really done anything and I need to collect my driver's license.
Okay, thank you very much, Pausa. Does anybody want to contribute to that? Thank you. Our guest speakers or any other person in the audience? Thank you.
Well,
1 minute, please.
Okay, let me just say, that is a very, it's a common case. And what you need to do, since you have stayed this long in, sticking to your guns that you will not correct it, you should actually, go onto social media. You should try and find out the name of the officer who has said this, and you blow it up. Those are the sort of things that we need to do. We need to Sorosoke. I mean, essentially using that language.
Okay.
And if you don't, then you will continue to suffer in silence. But I think it's something you need to do. It's the driver's license.
Okay. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I know for a fact that the Federal Road Safety Commission is actually ISO certified, to the best of my knowledge. And if they are the issuing authority, I think there are ways that you can actually address this. I know for a fact that they went through the whole SUN certification for ISO. So I want to believe that if you go through the right channels to complain, that will definitely be sorted. And social media is definitely one of the channels. Mr. Bayadaramala, we don't have so much time, but I'm going to give you 1 minute to respond to this. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks so much. Yeah. So it's just also my experience. I live in Bonny Island, and also just similar to the driving license issue for myself and my wife. When I went, actually, I had this kind of complaint too, but then like I had to Sorosoke. I had a shouting match with the lady over there. And at the end of the day, I got my driving license. So it's just a matter of really putting up that courage also to challenge this kind of illegality in the country. And as to the ISO certification of federal road safety, and I think it's also unfair for us then to really also check out and audit and verify how workable, how are they working to that certification? Because I know the form that we fill on the net is actually very bad form. The specifications in the form does not reflect the reality of somebody applying for a driving license. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. So let's bring the conversation back to doing right at the workplace. Thank you so much. And I think I'll start with Mr. Dapo. You did mention something about compromise, right? So let's talk a little bit about the word compromise. A very respected elder statesman once said that at some point in your career and in life generally, the choices before you will shift from black and white or good or bad to different shades of gray. Now the question is, how do we negotiate compromises in difficult circumstances without breaching our code of doing right at all times? Can you share a personal experience to drive this home? Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Dapo. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Toby. I have a very, very good experience on this, and the experience is actually still ongoing. We were visited by one of the tax institutions I wouldn't want to mention, and they said they were conducting an investigation that we were not paying taxes. Okay. So the investigation started. This investigation started in 2021, January, to be precise. And for everything the tax authorities asked for, we gave it to them. All our taxes were paid: PAYE, corporate tax, VAT, withholding tax, everything was paid. But they did not believe that, we could pay, that we were right in doing everything that we were doing. And they kept on saying, there must still be something. And we said, look, there's nothing. All our documentation is correct. They said they wanted all the ledgers. We gave them all the ledgers. Oh, we want everything in soft copy and in hard copy, 15 copies of each, because it's going to be looked at by a by a committee because they tried to frustrate us. We gave them everything. 15 copies. I had to go and we had to print 15 copies of, you can imagine, ledgers and things like that. They looked through, they did not find anything. And we were not expected to pay any more taxes, regarding that. And we continued. At some point, the leader of the team called me and said, but you know what to do. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't know what to do. All I know all I know what to do is if you ask us something, if we have the information, we'll give it to you. And we gave it to them. Thank God we had all our documentation in place. And that was why I said, documentation is very, very important. And they even alluded to it to say, you guys, you are keeping all your documentation. And as if we knew, we were keeping all our files online, and immediately they asked for something, we just gave it to them. Just to let you know, that audit has not been closed till today, simply because we've not given them anything. But they've not even come up with an additional taxation or whatever. But again, just to answer your question, just make sure that you have your documentation right. And if there was any shortfall in taxation and we agreed to it, we will pay it. I told them we will pay it. So I think that answers that question very well.
Thank you very much. That's actually a very profound example. I mean, one of our values at DoRight Initiative is actually diligence. So diligently doing your work by excellent record keeping can actually be the game changer. Antayo, please. Okay, Antayo, please go. Your hand are raised. I'll give you 1 minute before I go to Mr. Oyewiri. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I just want to say thank you to Dapo, because it turns out that we're going through the same thing he's went through from the tax office right now. They're on our backs. They can't believe we paid all our taxes, and they're on our backs and they're trying to find anything. And every day they keep frustrating us, trying to frustrate us and asking for more and more documents. And we're just giving to them. So I'm happy to see that, there are people like my company, like his company, who are doing the right thing, paying the taxes. And by doing the right thing, you're even frustrating. Can you imagine you're frustrating the government because they wish you would do the wrong thing so that they can make some money off you, which is ridiculous. So thank you very much for that. I'll take it back to my MD and just tell him that he shouldn't worry. We should just, keep doing the right thing, and the others like us out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Antayo. So the word is simple. Always do the right thing. Always do the right thing. Mr. Oyewiri, do you want to contribute to that? Thank you.
I mean, compromise is a slippery slope. I don't think there's any one of us that can look back in our lives and said that we haven't done something that we feel doesn't meet up to even our own personal standards. But I think what I've learned about compromise is really about what's at stake for you. And in the end, if what is at stake for you is more important than doing the right thing, then that would win. But if what's at stake for you is aligned with doing the right thing, then hopefully you have a chance. So sometimes I've seen a lot of that in my professional life, where you've had to make some tough calls, when people maybe try and approach you to ask you to do certain things, or they do certain things that you have to step in and stop them from doing that. And if they're senior people, for a lot of people, they feel it's at a cost that for most people, they feel it's too high for them to bear. What's the cost? Maybe your career might be retarded. Maybe the person will give you a poor bonus. Maybe you might even be fired. Who knows? Or you might have somebody who's senior who's victimizing you. Now, if that's what's most important to you, then you're very likely to compromise and turn a blind eye and let things go. But if what's driving and motivating you is something slightly different, you might approach it differently. And I think then the issue is in how do you approach it. as a young, hot-headed man, I was quite sometimes quite brash in the office, and I would challenge senior people if I sort of did the wrong thing, and I would, stop them if I felt that it was the wrong thing to do. As I said, as I learned over the years, how I mellowed, and I found ways to still stop them from doing the wrong thing, but perhaps in a way that wasn't so abrasive. And not because you're trying to curry favor, but also, I mean, you have to balance all things. You still have to be as respectful as you can be. You still have to be as peaceable as you can be. But I think, as Mr. Daraman said, it does take courage. What's important to me has always been to be able to look at myself in the mirror and to be able to have God and my parents look at me and say, okay, if they heard I did this thing, what would they say? And that has always been more important to me than any promotion, any career advancement, any job opportunity. So that always helps, at least to set you on the side, okay, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to compromise. And the question then is about how. Because, in a society where you're in the minority, where you don't get applauded for doing the right thing most of the time, whether you get victimized, then you do need a bit of skill and tact about how to do it. Sometimes you have to be aggressive, but I think you also need to pick the opportunities. But sometimes you just have to. I recall once when one of the very senior person in my business did something when I was in procurement, and I had to think about how I was going to address it. So he sent an instruction to one of my officers and told them to do the wrong thing. But I then had to stop him, but rather than confront him directly, I sent an instruction back to my officer and told him to do the right thing, and was able to stop that action and save face both for my boss, but also for avoid conflict. So there are ways to do it. I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Oyewiri. I was actually going to ask you at the end of this session to actually, because I do know that working in the procurement space in our client is perhaps one of the toughest terrain you can ever think of. And I was going to ask how you've been able to navigate that. I mean, if time permits us, we're still going to get to that. But then again, if you're joining us, thank you so much, Mr. Oyewiri. Thank you so much, our audience. If you're just joining us, once again, we warmly welcome you. This is DoRight at the Workplace Conversation. This is the second edition, and this has been put together by DoRight Awareness Initiative. We are a group of passionate Nigerians that is trying to build a base for people to always do the right thing. Always do the right thing regardless of what the situation is. Please, you do very well to please check our website on www.doright.ng and follow us on Always Do Right NG, Always Do Right NG on Twitter and Instagram. We actually teach values of integrity, diligence, respect, compassion, justice, courage, and meritocracy. And our mission is actually to mobilize like-minded Nigerians who understand the fundamental damage that lawlessness is doing to our nation, and who is just tired of the moral decadence that currently pervades our life as a nation. By the end of this session, I'm going to ask if we have Nigerians in diaspora and what their experience in the workplace is, and how we can and what we can do to give Nigeria a better name. Thank you so much. I don't know if there's any other person that wants to contribute to that other question. If not, I'd like to ask Mr. Oyewiri. Now, in your assessment, what values do you think is like the most lacking in the workplace in Nigeria? And of course, how do we bridge this gap? 1 minute, please.
I think professionalism, I would say, in my experience. There are so many paradigms in the workplace, either the paradigm of loyalty, the paradigm of cooperation. Sometimes we're too cooperative, which means we would accept mediocrity from each other as long as we don't rock the boat. I think I see a lot of that lacking, the understanding of what professionalism is and the price you have to be a professional. I think that's something that would be great to see come back into the workplace. Thank you.
Beautiful. Mr. Dapo, do you want to say anything?
No, I think I'll just echo that professionalism very, very important, because it goes down to what you do in the workplace, you know. And if you look at a situation where, for instance, your boss, okay, my own line of work, assuming I'm supposed to make a provision on something that a loss that we know that is going to happen or that has happened, and you have to make a provision, and then your boss says, "Oh no, we need to look at the bottom line. We need to manage this. Can you pack it somewhere before we bring it out?" Now you'll be at a dilemma, because this is your boss, and you know that if you pack it somewhere, you are not doing the right thing, you know. So what do? You know, it's either you get in the line of fire or something. There are things you can do, and that's where whistleblowing, you know, comes up in a workplace. So if your boss asks you to do that, and you know that this thing is not supposed to be done, then you do it, but you whistleblow.
Sorry, Mr. Dapo, if I may interject you.
Yeah.
So please, can we all mute our phones? Please? Thank you. So, Mr. Dapo, I'm sorry to interject you, but we have had situations where whistleblowing has backfired.
Yeah.
Right. So, in that instance, what do you say?
Okay, so it now depends on the company and the sort of whistleblowing that they have. Because if whistleblowing is going to make you lose your job, you better just do it. Because, you know, at the end of the day, you know that you've done the right thing, and, you know, your conscience is right. Because you actually don't want to do the wrong thing. That's the truth.
Excellent.
I you know, the procurement guys, I pity them. I'm sorry to say that, I pity them. They go through a lot of these things, you know, in their line of work. And sometimes you see that if you are singled out as the person who is not doing what others are doing, it's very likely you will lose your job. But trust me, the truth will come out, and you would actually be known for that. And somebody will hire you for that uncompromising attitude that you have. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Mr. Dapo. I do know of the story of the CFO, one of the largest multinational. He's actually the first Nigerian CEO of a very multinational company that actually did something very similar to what you said when he was manager of revenue assurance in the same firm. And at the time, it didn't go well, but by the time it was time to appoint a Nigerian as the first CFO, he was the obvious choice because of what he did years before. It was the obvious choice. Thank you so much. So I don't know if we have any member of the audience that may want to contribute to that as well. Do we have anybody? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. So again, if you're joining us for the first time, or if you're just joining us, we welcome you to this conversation on doing right at the workplace. This is put together by DoRight Awareness Initiative.
I do have a question, please.
Okay.
Hand is raised.
Okay,
yeah,
so
good
just
evening,
go ahead.
everyone.
Yes, please go ahead. Yes, please.
Okay, I just want someone to address the fact that, well, whoever wants to start doing the right thing, who's been doing the wrong things, how do they start to do that? Did you hear me?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dapo and Mr. Oyewiri. Or if we have anybody that wants to respond to that, please kindly do so. Kindly signify by raise of hand, and then we'll call you. But I'll give the floor to our guest speakers.
So I would say in that situation, doing the right thing actually takes a lot of courage. And if you're in that situation that you have resolved that, look, I want to change, there are few fundamentals around you that need to change. I think first is stating your stance to in a tactful and of course with wisdom, where it's possible to be able to let people understand there has been that shift. Secondly, is as much as possible trying to remove yourself from the situations or the company that helps or encourages or forces you to do the wrong thing. And I think the third is just also to have the resolve in your heart that you're going to accept and absorb the consequences. Unfortunately, it may not be something that will be easy. Even in times like our daily lives, trying to do the right thing, trying not to pay bribes, trying not to do, take shortcuts. There are sometimes, heavy prices to pay, waste a lot of time, miss opportunities, but you need that resolve. And I think the fourth thing I would say is to also find encouragement. Find somebody who perhaps is doing what you would like to do, who can encourage you, who can guide you, who can tell you how to do it better and also to motivate you. So it's not easy. I can't say, I can't pretend it is, but I'd say maybe those four things might be able to help. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Beruche, 1 minute, please. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, everybody. I've been listening very intently, and this is quite interesting. So I love the last question. How do you begin to do something right if you've been doing the wrong thing? It's just so fortunate that God created us and we have a conscience that tells us what is right and what is wrong. So I'll say that we start by taking the little steps. At least start with us. You start with yourself. Start by telling yourself the truth. Start by resuming at your workplace the time you're supposed to resume, and do the right thing by putting in the work. Close by the time you're supposed to close. Don't go to work and start moving from offices and turning yourself to a PRO. Start by telling your team the truth. Start by pulling up people the right way, not teaching them the bad things. So for me, it's a gradual step. But once you start with yourself, then you see that you can replicate that in others. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Beruche, for that. So once again, thank you so much. You've been a very beautiful audience. Just like I was saying before the question, this session, Doing Right at the Workplace, is put together by the DoRight Awareness Initiative, which is a national movement mobilizing like-minded Nigerians who understand the actual damage that lawlessness and moral decadence have done to our nation. We aim to be the credible voice that boldly speaks the truth while demonstrating and championing causes that improve the quality of lives of people at local, state, and national levels. And our vision is simply to reawaken and entrench uprightness in Nigeria. We started sometimes last year, and we would like you to please join us. You can please check us out on our website, that is www.doright.ng. And please follow us on all our social platforms. Our social platforms on Twitter and Instagram is always do right NG. Always do right NG. Thank you so very much. All right, so the website is actually has just been posted on the chat box for those of us that might want to learn more about the Doing Right Awareness Initiative. We are non-partisan and we are non-religious. We are non-partisan and non-religious at the same time. Thank you so much. All right, back to our guest, Mr. Oyewiri. Okay. Okay. So in 1 minute, right? How in the workplace, what are the practical steps that you can adopt to galvanize a do-right base in such a way that we're able to build an army of people that can go on to influence others. The last speaker actually did mention something like that, So I don't know if you can answer that. But before then, maybe before we get to that, may I ask you, how have you been able to sustain strength of character and values in your career? And especially for the young and upwardly mobile coming people that are listening on this call, what advice do you have on how they can develop long-lasting character, ethics, and values? That's before you get to the last question, before you get to the first question I asked. John?
So I think in the end, they say be the change you want to see. And I think we just need to accept that we can't live in a society that we hope to be better and complain about when we do all the things that cause the society to be in the state that so we just have to be honest with ourselves and then try and find inspiration and motivation in people who have gone before you, who have done it before. I was very fortunate to have a very up-close view of somebody who worked in integrity and seeing both the hard times, but also how it all pays off in the end. So I think that resolve is really important, and trying to surround yourself, motivate yourself, ingest in what you read and what you watch, things that help you stay on that course. Being cynical and saying that, well, everybody else is doing it, it's just helping to create a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think on the second part of what you said in the workplace, it's important that, especially wherever we can, we try and create conditions for people to be able to and want to do the right thing. So in being transparent, in being consistent, in being fair, in being inclusive, in sharing knowledge, in sharing benefit, in sharing praise and reward and recognition. Because I think what a lot of people fear is being marginalized or left behind or left out or losing out. So I think one of the things one tries to do is to try and ensure that people feel fairly treated, that merit is a basis of things you do, that you're transparent in your dealings and you're consistent in what you say and do. I think people want to see it's possible. And one of the motivations of my life has always been, as I've seen before me, my father has done before me, my parents have done before me, is to hopefully be an example to people that they can say, well, he did it, so and it didn't work out too badly for him. And hopefully that could also encourage other people to walk the same path. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. Mr. Dapo, please. Same question. Do you need me to repeat it? Do you need me to go over the question?
Yeah, just a bit.
All right, so the question is, number one, how have you been able to sustain strength of character and values in your career? And for the young and upwardly mobile people listening on this session, what advice can you offer, to help them develop that long-lasting character, ethics, and values? And then secondly, in the workplace, what are the practical steps that you can adopt to galvanize a DoRight base in such a way that we're able to build an army of people that can actually go on to influence others? Thank you.
Thank you. I think, or I believe that you have to be the light. You have to be the beacon in your office, and people need to know what you stand for. Again, I'll just share a very short experience. I was fortunate to be the first CFO of Airtel in Uganda, and it was something that I didn't even know how it happened. I was deputy CFO, in Nigeria, and one was looking up to Nigeria, and then you got posted somewhere. Now, roll forward years later, about 6 years later, I got promoted also to Kenya, to the head office, and the CFO then said, Dapo, do you even know how you got here? I said, I don't know. He said, when he got to Nigeria, he went around the banks, And he said, oh, this guy, I want to promote him to Uganda. What do you think about it? Oh, that guy, no, he's the one you should, he's very straightforward. He doesn't take bribes. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. He's very straightforward. 6 years later. So it goes to confirm that you just need to do things which you need to do. You need to be known for something, be the light in the office. Even if everybody is doing the wrong thing, just be the light and do the right thing. You will get the reward later. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so very much, Mr. Dapo. Like I said, the example I shared the other time, it was a case of as a manager revenue assurance, he actually stood up to a member of the board to say, you know what, you overstepped your ESTA code, and you must refund the company. And it was a very big issue. But I mean, fast forward a few years to that time, the same member of the board actually recommended him for the role to become the first indigenous CFO in a very large multinational in Nigeria. So yes, thank you so very much. I really would have loved to take more input from the audience, but we are past, our time is past spent, and we want to start by doing the right thing. So the session is actually for 6 to 7 p.m. So I'll give our guest speakers just 15 seconds to give us a closing remark, and then round up for the day. Thank you. Mr. Dapo and Mr. Oyewiri. Just 15 seconds.
I'll answer the question you didn't get to ask. In terms of procurement, I think one of the things was I was fortunate to have people ahead of me who gave sage advice on how to walk the line. And then my father told me about systems, and he says, look, create transparency. Transparency is like light. It helps to odorize the place, and anything that's foul shows up when you have systems that are transparent. And the second was my MD telling me that, look, don't go chasing witches. In a sense, he said, just do the right thing. If you buy something, make sure you get a fair price and the right quality. That's your job. If people want to do any funny things in the margins, as long as those margins are not there, it's very difficult. And I stuck to those two simple principles. And for 5.5 years in procurement in a very hot seat, I thank God I left there without any investigation. So
that's amazing. Thank you so very much. Thank you all. Thank you also very much for joining us. I mean, just to recap, sorry, Mr. Dapo, sorry, I forgot Mr. Dapo, sorry. So please, I'm going to extend by 2-3 minutes, but we'll be out in a bit. Thank you.
No, nothing more to add other than that, just be yourself. If you're not doing the right thing, start doing the right things. And it goes to the basics, even to our homes, to offices, to everything that we need to do. Just do the right things, and you will not feel left out. Even if you feel left out, internally, you are satisfied that you've done the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. So just to recap a few of the learning points for the session, we started by saying that you need to start by live your life by looking at your life backwards. I mean, what do you want to be remembered for? You need wisdom to handle a lot of situations. You have to stand up for what you believe in. You have to understand that accountability is key. You have to start early in building a reputation for saying no. You have to develop the aptitude for diplomacy. God help us in this instance. Your foundation matters, and you have to stand up for something. If you do not, you fall for anything. You have to be the change you want to see. You have to find inspiration and motivation in upright mentors. You have to start with the resolve to always do the right thing. You have to expose yourself to the right influence via all your senses, what you listen to, what you read, and the people you associate with. You have to build transparency and consistency and fairness and excellence at all levels. You have to be diligent in doing your work. You have to find the fine balance of courage and emotional intelligence. You have to develop the skill and tact to negotiate compromises. You have to realize that doing the right thing takes a lot of courage and standing alone. You have to state your stance, remove yourself from the situation that encourages you to do the wrong thing, be willing to absorb the consequences, and find encouragement with like minds. I mean, these are some of the points, these are some of the lessons that we have learned in this most rewarding session. Once again, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. This session will also hold last week in December. We will communicate to you, but please do well to follow us on all our social media channels, like we have actually mentioned, and our website. The links have actually been posted in the chat box, and we'll be very glad to relate with you. Once again, it's been a very, very good privilege to host you this evening. My name is Toba Boyeji, and I always say I'm a new Nigeria optimist. I believe that a new Nigeria is possible and a new Nigeria will happen. Thank you very much and good night.
Well done. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, lovely session. Thank you very much. Toby, well done.
Thank you, Ma.
Okay.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much. Good night,
night.
everyone. Thank you. Good night,
Dapo,
everyone.
thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Good night,
Hey,
everyone.
thank you.
Good night,
Kayinde,
everyone.
Dapo.
Thank you.
Excellent job.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.